it's interesting, actually, my experience in men's groups, both being a part of them and also speaking at them, is that they are generally mostly populated with men who grew up without a male role model.
Right.
And that the group is kind of acting as the communal male role model for everybody.
The communal father, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the sort of question I want to preface this with, like, anytime I see, first of all, there are a lot of influencers and YouTubers and creators out there who will like start their answer with, a man needs to be this, or, you know, every man needs this. And to me, that's a red flag. Like, there is as much variation between men as there is between anybody in the human race. So what feels very true and important for one young man is going to feel very different for another. But I do think in general, in human nature, I think it's important to look for both role models and fellow travelers on the path of life who are similar to ourselves and have the same lived experience as ourselves. So if you're a young man, that means finding other young men and finding some older men that you can look up to and admire and get advice from, etc. My general piece of advice to young men is to simply channel their angst and their energy towards something of value. That ultimately, like, if you look from an evolutionary perspective, the man's role, other than making babies, the man's role in human society is to produce more value than he consumes. Whether that's going and killing a water buffalo to feed the tribe, or devising a new piece of technology, or protecting people from invaders, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, you should feel that you're adding value in some way. And, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote a book last year that is very simple, and I love the premise, and it's just be useful. Be useful. Like, his answer to kind of every life problem is just get up and go be useful. And most things will kind of take care of themselves. And I think in general for men, that's more often than not going to lead to the solution. Is like, if you feel lost, just like go be useful, go do something useful, like go help somebody, go build something. That's the starting point, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's kind of this common lament among men that, you know, society sees us as we're dispensable. You know, we're disposable.
Yeah, we are.
And we are. No, we are. But the point you're making is, it's like, make yourself less dispensable, right? Go
make
be
yourself
useful.
Indispensable.
Right. Go add value.
Yes. So if we want to get into, like, if we want to go hardcore on the evolutionary psych, like, let's do that for a second, which is, historically, men are completely dispensable.
Right.
Dispensable. Dispensable? Dispensable.
Dispensable. Disposable.
Disposable. That's the word. Men are completely disposable. I mean, it's simple biology is that, you know, one woman can only have a child every 9 months, whereas one man can have like a fucking 100 kids every 9 months. So men are very disposable, and we are evolutionarily adapted to that reality that we are, we're stronger, we're more physical, we tend to have more physical energy, and we tend to seek out danger. We're more risk-taking. We tend to seek out danger and are more willing to put ourselves in harm's way. And so I think it's don't lament the fact that men are disposable. Like, embrace that fact and as you said, find ways to be indispensable. Like, what is the value you can create that people are like, oh, no, don't send him to war. Like, we fucking need that guy, you know?
Right.
So it's like, ask yourself that. And basically just try to create far more value than you're consuming.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned the not having good role models. I looked up some research on absent fathers.
Yeah.
And consistently, what the most rigorous research around this finds is that there's consistent effects of absent fathers on high school graduation rates, a child's socio-emotional adjustment, and their adult mental health.
Yeah.
And if you look at those three things, so education, socio-emotional development, and mental health. Those are 3 areas that modern men are really, really struggling with right now. Educational attainment has been on the decline for men while it's going up for women.
Yes.
Socio-emotional adjustment. A lot of men in their 20s and 30s are either feeling or are labeled as being a little bit stunted
Yes.
in the emotional department. And then mental health. Men's mental health is just men commit suicide at nearly 4 times the rate that women do.
Right.
So these just so happen to be 3 areas that we're seeing that men they have a plight right now.
Well, and we're seeing it's a record number of households are growing up with single mothers.
Right.
You know, or a record number of children are growing up with single mothers. Right. So this is just one of those highly under-discussed topics. Yeah. And I think the messaging around this is just been bad. Like, I think conservatives have actually fucked this up because this is an issue that they are 100% right on, and they're just really bad at communicating that. I think it's most people, when they hear like family values or the importance of family, it's always attached to like some religious connotation. You know, whenever, at least here in the US, whenever you hear, you know, some conservative politician rail on about family values, pretty high likelihood you're going to hear the words God or Jesus very soon afterwards. And I think that just turns lefties' minds off completely. They're like, oh, he just said the G word. I don't have to listen to him anymore. Whereas if they just presented the data, like the data on 2-parent households versus 1-parent household is absolutely staggering. And it's the level, the amount of children growing up today in 1-parent households is like epidemic proportions. And as you just pointed out, like the outcomes are so much worse, both like cognitively, but also emotionally, and just in general educational attainment, well-being, et cetera, et cetera. So like, I get frustrated around this of like, you guys are right. Like, you're just fucking up the messaging. Right. Like, just put some studies in front of people and it'll be undeniable. So, yeah, I do think it's, and there are a lot of young men out there who do feel lost, who don't have role models like this. The guy who asked this question, I mean, there's a huge amount of guys like this in my audience. And I think it's a lot of them are turning online to people like myself or Jordan Peterson or Chris Williamson or Joe Rogan, you know, to like kind of try to find those male role models and more importantly, like a sense of community, like a sense of like a group of guys who like think the same way and deal with the same struggles and have the similar aspirations. So people can trash the quote unquote, you know, manosphere or alt-right or whatever. To me, it's just like an inevitability of the demographic issues that society is going through. So
would you have any recommendations around that, though? We talked the other day about creators and kind of people having these parasocial relationships. You and I discussed that. And do you think that's a good thing? Can it be a good thing? Can it be a bad thing? You know, if somebody's glomming onto like, you know, there's varying levels of toxicity out there around this. Do you have any guiding principles around that?
I think overall it's a good thing. I mean, we're filling a demand.
Yes.
Right. So, and I think having something online, having some sort of parasocial relationship with a male role model is much better than just having no male role model, period. That said, there's like, as you pointed out, there's a differing degrees of healthiness and unhealthiness. And the problem is that young men, especially if they're like emotionally stunted or haven't gotten out in the real world a whole lot, they're going to be very bad judges of like what is a healthy role model and what's an unhealthy role model. Like they're probably going to mistake things that sound cool and sexy and like a dude standing next to a Lamborghini is like, oh, that's a cool role model. You know, hopefully as they get older, they'll grow out of that. I think most do. But the advice that I would give is I would look at the ethical and emotional character of what the man is saying. It's funny, actually, I had a friend a long time ago who told me this, and it's very, very true. He said, the next time you start like looking up to somebody online, put on a video of them and turn the sound off and just gauge like their facial expressions. And it's amazing, actually. Like there's a lot of people that as soon as you turn the sound off, they look so incredibly angry. Like it's just,
Oh,
you can just see this, it's
interesting.
just like anger is just fueling everything.
Yeah.
Whereas like other people, there's like a joy or a levity. And then other people, there's kind of like this sadness that is seeping through. So,
Oh, that's fascinating. That's a cool little hack.
but like I look at, I think an obvious example is somebody like Andrew Tate. Like I get why young men see him and are like kind of seduced by it, because especially if you're like a young 16-year-old, no male role model, no real friends, haven't really done anything in life, doesn't, feel very, has a lot of anger and resentment and frustration that you don't know how to express. You see a guy like that who is just clearly full of rage and very antisocial, like just very, like clearly takes pleasure in upsetting other people, being obnoxious, saying like just arguably being unethical. I can see why that's seductive to that young guy.
Right.
But I think if you're that young guy, you need to be able to look past that and ask yourself like, okay, like what is this actually sustainable, or am I just, kind of getting excited because I'm like living vicariously through this guy in a YouTube video or whatever.
Yeah. I would not want to be a young man. I remember how hard it was, when I was like this guy's in college.
Yeah.
It was an intense period to go through, an intense emotional experience that you have at that age, and just trying to figure shit out. And I don't know. I feel for you, man. I wouldn't want to be in those situations these days.
I feel it's only gotten more complicated.
Yeah,
as
it
time's
really
gone
has.
on.
It really has.
For sure.
That's too bad.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. This was part of the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. That's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Stitcher, whatever you use. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.